So this becomes a very major risk. On the human aspect, which is based on the animal experimentation, let me just run through from the beginning. The first very big study on safety was done by Arpad Putsai, the leading lectin expert of the world. He was asked by the UK government, $35 million grant, to study the safety of GMOs. He was totally pro-GMOs. He thought this would be wonderful. And he started to do the tests. And normally these are rat feeding studies. He found that the brain had shrunk, the rat's brain had shrunk, the pancreas had enlarged hugely, and the immunity system had collapsed. So he asked his director, he says, this is too serious, it should be made public. And the director said, sure, go ahead. He held a press conference and announced it. Suddenly, mysteriously, things started to happen. And the scientist who was asked to do the study by the government of the UK was fired by the government of the UK. The story goes that Monsanto got to Clinton, and Clinton got to Blair, and Blair got to the director and said, fire this man. A gag order was put on him. He couldn't talk about his research till the UK Parliament mobilized to get the gag order removed. A scientist in Berkeley, from where Ali comes, Ignacio Chapela, did work on the contamination of corn in Mexico. He too was blocked in his tenure. The interesting thing is that Nature, which published a study, then got mysterious letters saying the study is wrong. These emails were found traced to come from one public relations firm hired by Monsanto. It's called viral marketing. They can pretend to be a million scientists, just sitting at a desk and putting out letters. Another is Irina Ernikova, a Russian scientist, did rat feeding studies. Half of the offspring died, and the ones that survived had huge tumors. You can Google Irina Ernikova and you will find this images of the rats on the web. More recently, two important series of studies have been done. One, the Austrian government did a study and found very high levels of infertility in the offspring. And that is one reason the Austrian government has put a ban on genetically engineered foods and crops. And Lower Austria has passed a law on self-determination of food, saying we will not obey European Commission laws because this is about the health of our people. What Ali was saying about GMO, genetic engineering, not really having the status of a technology because its results are not reproducible, French scientists found that the next generation of genetically engineered crops have genomes that are totally different from the genome of the first generation. So there's no predictable reproduction, and we don't even know what the next scrambling of the genome will do in terms of what kinds of traits will it bring out into nature. France has a ban. 5 countries have bans: Poland, Greece, France, Austria. 50 regions have a ban, and the Commission on the Future of Food has an agreement with the regions that are today GMO-free. I want to point out that in 2003, President Bush was used by Monsanto to fight a case against Europe for not having GMOs approved for the European market. And this was brought to the World Trade Organization as part of free trade, that Monsanto has a right to force Europeans to grow GMOs and eat GMOs. We created at that point a huge citizens campaign on a GMO-free system, and this citizens campaign mobilized about 1 million signatures, sign-ons. We took them to the WTO at the Hong Kong meeting. Jose Bové was there, Susan George was there, and I was there. We handed over. And basically our petition said, we're watching how you decide. We know you usually decide in the favor of corporations. But if you do, you will lose all credibility because you will not be seen as a neutral platform. So watch how you rule. They didn't rule against Europe. They did a waffling decision this way and that way, you could interpret it anyway, which shows again what Ali said, that we have the power if we exercise it. We were able to change the WTO decision. If they had seen us as passive, they'd have ruled against Europe and Europe would have been flooded by GMOs. When they saw we are a vigilant citizenry organized globally, they stepped back. And that's the message we've got to give to COP15 too.
Yeah. Now what's happening in most of Africa, I mean, if I speak about my country, we never had a biosafety protocol, most African countries. Now we are supported to have a biosafety protocol. And in our case, we had delayed the biosafety protocol for a long time. And the biosafety protocol that we had was stringent in terms of a draft. And later, the biosafety protocol was issued. And it was weakened a lot. It's so funny. Let me tell you one incident. One day I went to a shop and I bought a cooking oil. And I looked at the label. It says GM cooking oil. It's GM soya. So I said, do we know about this? So I called my friends. And the next day, we started calling and writing letters to every ministry or every organization who should have made sure that this material didn't enter into the country. Nobody knows, and there is no mechanism. And the biosafety protocol is administered by the Environmental Protection Authority in Ethiopia. We know that organization, and we don't have an office or a desk or any mechanism to assess requests properly. So Africa is forced to have this biosafety protocol before it's ready, so that they are preparing the ground to introduce GM crops into Africa. And we have passed the law, the biosafety proclamation, very much recently, because there were some companies wanted to introduce BT cotton into Ethiopia. That's why they did it. And as we know, because we know them, they don't have the capacity to read the documents, the documents that are submitted by the company, and to see whether it confirms with all the laws that's present in here. And recently, a funny thing has happened. We had a problem. So the USAID donated how many quintals, I don't know, how many tons of maize to Ethiopia. Any GM entering into the country say that, no, we don't accept it. But the government said, why? Why don't you accept it? And there was a huge commotion around this. And it's not yet solved. So my message is that, as far as I know, most African countries do not have the capacity to monitor GMs in their own countries. But now they are forced to have biosafety proclamations. And basically, they will allow the entrance of this GM crops or whatever, because we don't have the capacity.
Can I follow up just a bit on that and ask you, because in the U.S. we're often told that Africa is basically a non-GM region, that through the biosafety protocol, Africa can protect itself from not accepting GM. That's really what goes around the U.S. a lot, even within our GM groups and food and farm groups. How can you, maybe without getting too technical, maybe address that a little bit, just so we have a better understanding of the as you say, it's not protection, and GM is still coming into the country. And I think the second part of that, a question would be, why has that food aid been rejected too? A lot of people, I think we need a better understanding of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the office that has rejected it because of the law. In the law, it says that any GM material that enters into the country should enter in terms of what you call a flour, not as it is, because the farmers will plant it. It is rejected. Basically, we support this rejection because there was an alternative by other governments in the US government to give another kind of food. It's like, we give you food, whatever it is, and eat it. That's what has happened in Zambia, if you remember, around 2002, I think.